coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Woo! Here we go once again. I said I was going to start doing this 1:30 time slot every day. It just magically worked out today that Jeremy actually wanted to do 1:32. I done on some 1:30 live streams, one live stream last week, and it actually done pretty well, surprisingly, for the time slot. So I wanted to give it a try again. Today we're going to talk about college football week 8. We're going to give you our predictions on some of these major games that are coming up that's going to probably define the season going forward, as well as maybe touch on something that sort of irked me a little bit. Alabama fans, a lot of them, me included, I was real critical of Alabama after they lost to Florida State, but a lot of people give us up for dead. I'm going to bring back up some of that and get Jeremy's take on that. And then we'll touch on some Oklahoma and Georgia stuff, as well as the coaching carousel that keeps going round and round and round and round. It's completely out of control, man. I wouldn't be surprised if there'd be some more people fired like Billy Napier, maybe even Michigan's coach, Sharon Moore. He's getting a little bit on that hot seat as well, in my opinion. But, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and bring up this clip real quick. Is there anything you want to add before I take off? Do you want to let us know where we can find you and that kind of deal?
Yeah, find me. I'm on YouTube, Southern Sports Focus, talking about all the things happening in the world of the Southern region sports-wise, and I'll have a Facebook group also entitled Southern Sports Focus. So hopefully working on some new stuff here soon, and maybe try to broaden that a little bit. But that's the two places right now. And hey, just come in, join us, subscribe, all the good stuff, and we just right now just doing some short videos here and there. But as we get this thing rolling more, we'll try to do more.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring this up real quick. We'll touch on the Alabama part of this show, but I just want to bring this up. This is why you don't really want to completely open your mouth and insert your foot all the way in, because you might look like a complete idiot as the season progresses, especially after one game. We all should have been ashamed of how we give up on Alabama, to be quite honest. But this is the one that's really shameful. Check it out. Can you see that? Can you see that, Jeremy?
Yes, yeah, legend. Yeah, I see that.
Right.
This is a football nightmare, brother. The Gus Bus wheels do go round and round. Round and round over by Candy Ass. That's where they went round and round. I'm not saying that I hate your ass, but if you was on life support, I'd pull the plug and charge my phone. You're about as popular as a bonus track on a Yoko Ono album right now, dude. Nobody likes you. You are an outsider. You couldn't inspire a chicken to cross the road if there was a hen on the other side looking like Megan Fox and some Daisy Dukes. Get the hell out of town. Clear it away. Elvis is leaving the damn building.
And Elvis left the building a long time ago, but legend, he's real famous for those outbursts, but he looks like a complete moron at this point. Now, Alabama could still melt down. There's plenty of season left to make legend look right. But for now, I mean, we are looking like the most impressive team out there. And I'm not saying it because I'm an Alabama fan. It's all the national pundits are saying that Alabama is looking like the most complete team outside of Ohio State.
I mean, you look at this team, and there's just so much that's been going on from week 1 till now that is, I mean, it's very positive. And this team has improved a lot in a lot of ways. There's still things to work on. I still got some concerns about the offensive line, especially that right tackle position. But the defense is playing better ever since after the first quarter of the Vanderbilt game. They have really buckled down in running the run defense. I mean, last week you had Ahmad Hardy for Missouri at home, averaging like 170 a game. He was the leading rusher in FBS, and Alabama held him to like 54 yards. So the run defense is shoring up. The offense, concerned there with Jam Miller. We don't know what's going to be going on with him, but the running game has been better. Ty Simpson is a top 5 quarterback in the nation. There's just so many things that have come together. And I think that Florida State loss kind of shook them out of apathy. I think they went in there. They were expecting to win, and they were not willing to put in the work to win. And the coaches finally recognized that. They said that Kalen DeBoer, after that game, he really started getting after players, not quite Saban level, but that kind of happy-go-lucky, laid-back thing went by the wayside a little bit. And Ryan Grubb's the guy that will get after you. And even after the Missouri game, there was an article today where it said that Ty Simpson, one of the offensive linemen, said, man, he just crawled up our butts, man. He was just all over us for that performance. So there's leadership, there's accountability, which was really lacking last year for a lot of those games. And I think just the culture and the way they've been playing is all coming together for this team to be a national championship contender.
Yeah, which brings us to the third Saturday in October. I know we went away from that for a little while. It was the fourth or second Saturday in October, but they went back to the third Saturday in October, correct?
Yeah, it's been back on the third for a couple of years now, but there were several years because of when they went to divisions and all this different scheduling. There was sometimes it was the second, sometimes it was the fourth, but I think the past couple of years it's been back on the third, which is where it should be. I mean, it's one of college football's great traditions, and one thing that is got to be has been put by the wayside a lot with all these different changes is some of the traditions of college football. And this is one that needs to stay. It needs to stay on the third Saturday, October. It's one of the great college football rivalries. So the teams that's involved, where it is on the schedule, it's special. And it's just something that should not be messed with.
Right. And that brings us to this week. Like I said, we went through some pretty hard games. I actually thought we had a real big chance to lose to Missouri, and we almost did. You beat Georgia on the road. You beat Vanderbilt, who's very much improved. And then which they beat us last year, so that was an important game for us. And then you beat Missouri on the road as well. Another ranked team. That's 3 top 15 teams in a row. I saw a stat that said that's the first time that anybody has ever beaten 3 top 15 conference opponents in a row in the SEC history. So I did not know that. But we can go for the fourth this week. I think Tennessee's ranked in the top 15. And I got a few stats pulled up for Tennessee if you hadn't got a bunch of them, but we can go ahead and get to that portion of the show. We're going to give you our Alabama versus Tennessee picks, and then we'll move on to maybe some more college football picks and the coaching carousel. But let me go ahead and give our first batter up was Kevron Harris. He says, good afternoon, buddy. Go Tigers. He is our resident Clemsonite up in here. We ain't got many of them, but they do linger up in here a little bit. Got Ron TDB. I've never seen him in here. Welcome to the show, Ron. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, Ron. But that's our comments so far. So you got a little something you want to give us on the Alabama versus Tennessee game, or do you want me to bring up my stuff first?
Well, I'll go ahead and start off with this. You know, what's interesting about this game is some of the matchups because, as I mentioned, Alabama's run defense has shored up the past few games against Vandy and then against Missouri. Also, the pass defense has been solid all year long. But this is the first team that Alabama has really faced where they're facing an offense that can do both really well. Tennessee is the league's top passing offense. They're third in rushing offense. In total yards, they are best in the SEC, also best in scoring offense in the SEC. So they can run, they can pass. And again, while that run defense is shored up the last 2 weeks, neither Vandy nor Missouri can throw the ball like Tennessee can. I mean, they've got a couple of great wide receivers, Mazzell and another guy whose name escapes me off the top of my head, but they have a really deadly passing attack. Now, their quarterback, Aguilar, he can run the ball. He's been a little turnover prone at times. He's thrown 5 interceptions this year. And so he's been turning the ball over, and that's a big advantage that Alabama will have with that game being in Tuscaloosa. If they can get to him a little bit, make him uncomfortable, force a couple of turnovers, then that's going to be very good for the Tide. For Tennessee, I think it's going to come down to mainly one thing, and can they get to Ty Simpson? Now, Outlaw, you and I have talked about the Oklahoma pass rush a lot, how deadly it is. Oklahoma's not the top sack team in the league, Tennessee. They have 26 sacks this season. Bama pass protection, especially on that right side, I've mentioned that, has been kind of spotty. And the Vols have to get to the quarterback because if they don't, Ty Simpson is going to have a field day. Volunteers have the league's worst passing defense, and they've also been giving up a lot of points. They give up almost 30 points a game. So getting to Ty Simpson and not allowing him to find those receivers all over the field, Horton, Williams, Jeremy Bernard, Brooks, even at the tight end position, Josh Cuevas. If he has time to hit those guys, it is going to be a very long day for Tennessee in that secondary. I'm a little concerned, of course, about the running game because I mentioned this before. We don't know if Jam Miller is going to be able to play yet or not. He is in the concussion protocol. I will say that Kevin Riley, he can make some big plays, especially in the passing game, but he's not really an up the tackle, between the tackles type kind of guy. They said Daniel Hill, who is the 240-pound running back, he's been a little banged up. And we saw him a little bit more in Missouri after Miller went down. He had a couple of nice runs. So if he can kind of pick up the slack a little bit for those tough yards, then they should be in a little bit better shape. But I would feel a lot better if Jam Miller was playing.
Yeah, they said that Jam Miller had like his worst day as far as protection, blocking and protection for the pass game for Alabama. Usually Jam Miller's pretty reliable in that area, right?
Yeah, there was a lot of times against he didn't light up the stat sheet against Georgia, but he made a number of key blocks, and also in the Vanderbilt game. I don't know what was going on in the Missouri game where that pass rush was kind of confusing him a little bit more, but he missed a few, and that may have also been, I think a couple of times it was that offensive line on the right side where someone just got blown by and he was out of position. He didn't even have time to get set. So I don't think all of those were quite on him, but there was a couple of times where he just kind of missed his guy. And that's been kind of something he's been really good at. A little unroutine for him, but like I said, I'd still feel a lot better if he'd be playing in this ball game. But I still think that Alabama, the game in Tuscaloosa at home, they've got a good shot to pull this off.
Right, and we get by Tennessee. South Carolina's not looking too good right now. We can get to the off week before LSU not undefeated, but without a loss, then I think that will be really a key for us. I mean, going forward, if we can go into the LSU game with only one loss, it gives us a possible mulligan somewhere along the way, because with the way the schedule is, man, catching a second loss is very possible, in my opinion. But
it is, and there's
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there are a couple of road games that you got to look at. Fortunately, those road games, a couple of them are really their toughest games as far as team talent goes. Is they're at home. The Tennessee game, the LSU game, the ones that you would look at and say maybe, just maybe, they have a shot at at maybe not pulling that off, a shot at taking a loss. Probably those two games more than any. But you look at the remaining schedule, as you said, at South Carolina, LSU is at home, Oklahoma is at home. Who knows how good they're going to be with the John Mateer and that hand injury, how long that's going to linger. And then, of course, the Iron Bowl, and you have that voodoo, weird magic stuff that happens there. But that team is a mess right now, so that may be negated a bit by just how bad they've been. But you never know. They gave Georgia fits the first half. But yeah, the road games are very manageable. The home games, in Tuscaloosa, they got that long winning streak there. So, it wouldn't surprise me if Bama took another loss, but it wouldn't surprise me if they finished the season undefeated in conference play. You have to like the way this team is playing football right now.
Well, like I said, the only game that really worries me, ironically, is a team that's not really that great right now, and that's Auburn. Going down to Auburn, a lot of people might not understand it because it seems like it only affects Alabama and Georgia usually, because they almost beat Georgia, should have probably beat Georgia. We all have seen the play where Jackson Arnold looked like he had broken the plane before he fumbled the ball, and they have replay for that, and yet they still couldn't get it right. Now, the call against Oklahoma, I wasn't all about that because that's just Oklahoma tricking them. And that's on them. But I got to admit, it looks like Auburn is snake bit by the officiating this year. And I don't know how many more losses they can take like that before they just roll over. So by the time we get to them at the end of the year, they may have already rolled over by then. They may fire Hugh Freeze. He may be another guy that gets fired. We may see a record number of major college coaches losing their job this year. Now, I brought up the key statistical comparisons for you real quick. I know you like stats. It says here offensive efficiency. Alabama offense is ranked number 10 in the metrics, slightly ahead of Tennessee at number 14. Defensive efficiency, Alabama holds an edge defensively as well at number 18 compared to Tennessee's number 31. Turnover margin says Alabama has a significant advantage with a +9 margin turnover, second in the FBS. time of possession, Alabama averages significantly more time of possession, which is a big thing. You can possess the ball. It helps your defense out. It makes your defense look better than it really is sometimes, compared to Tennessee, who's 125th in time of possession. That could really come into play Saturday if Tennessee can't get on the field. Rushing offense, Tennessee's offense averages around 200 yards per game. That might be worrisome for us. But in this stat category here, it says Alabama's rushing defense is a key strength, which I'm not sure I agree with that. I thought our rushing defense was lacking a little bit, at least early on in the year. So what do you think about those key stats?
Well, the time of possession is a little misleading because Tennessee likes to go hyperspeed. They run that Josh Heupel no huddle offense, and Alabama is going to have to control the clock, and we see this a lot. And there's a few times I'm almost pulling my hair out seeing the offense out there because they run the play clock almost down to zero every time, and we saw several times against Missouri and against Vanderbilt where it's like 2-1 and Ty Simpson hasn't snapped the ball yet. So that needs to be worked on a little bit because there's too many occasions where they're having to call timeout or they take a delay a game. So they got to get that play in a little bit faster. And they do give Simpson the authority to make those changes. They trust him with the offense to call audibles, but they got to get that play in and give him a little more time to read the defense and see where everything is. So he's got a couple of seconds to process that before the ball needs to be snapped. But you look at all that stuff like offensive efficiency, defensive efficiency. That's all well and good that Tennessee's like in the 30s, which on paper doesn't look bad. But again, they give up a lot of points, and that's really what it comes down to. You can talk about efficiency and yards and all that stuff, but if you're giving 29.3 points per game, you're going to lose some ball games. And that's what Tennessee's been doing. So they have got to find a way to keep Alabama out of the end zone. One thing that Alabama struggled with the past few games has been red zone efficiency. They're getting to the red zone, they're getting points, but way too many times they're having to settle for field goals. So that's what Tennessee has got to do is force Alabama to kick field goals instead of getting to the end zone because Bama's going to move the ball on.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that's been really driving me crazy. I'll be watching the game with my buddies. I'm like, why is it taking so long to get the play called? I mean, that I've seen like probably 7, 8, maybe 9, 10 times, no exaggeration, where the clock's down to 1 second and he snaps the ball. I mean, at that point, you're relying on judgment from the officials on whether to call a penalty on you. And we've gotten tagged a few times for that. And, that can come back to bite you in a game that's real close, late in the game or something, when you really don't need a 5-yard penalty and that kind of deal. But, yeah. But backing up to what I was talking about, you sound like you wanted to do a little input on the whole Auburn fiasco real quick.
Well, first off, that was bad. I mean, there was some really bad calls in that. But ultimately, let's give Kirby Smart and Georgia a big applause for, holding Auburn to 0 points and 40 yards in the second half, because that's really what it came down to. So, kudos to them. Let's just take a timeout and give it a little bit of round of applause there, a little clap, you know what I'm saying? But you can make excuses for the officials all you want, and yeah, it could have affected the game. It did affect the game, but Hugh Freeze, there was some reports that said at the halftime, the halftime interview, and even at the halftime in the locker room, the reports were basically he couldn't shake it off.
That's right.
He was really upset about it. You could tell he kind of had this defeatist attitude. I was hearing one interview, I think it was Kevin Skarbinski was on a show here in Montgomery, and he was talking about that. And he said, if Freeze has this attitude, this defeatist attitude, that's going to spread to the team. And if he can't motivate them, he can't get them going. And if he can't get past that, they're not going to get past that. And so I think they kind of came out of the locker room the halftime already defeated, already done, because they could not shake that call on that missed touchdown. When that kind of stuff happens, yeah, it sucks, but you just got to put it behind you. And you've got to make the next play and get back on track, because Auburn was dominating that game. I mean, Georgia could do nothing. And Auburn, they missed some opportunities, but they were just taking the ball up and down the field. And Georgia didn't know what to do with them. You came out in the half, and it was completely reversed. Auburn it seemed like at halftime, they were just resigned to the fact they were going to lose because the officials screwed them.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I thought the same exact thing. So we've been on the page a couple of times here and didn't even know it. When she was interviewing him, I don't mind someone being a little critical of what happened, but he started talking about it and he acted like he was going to cut it short like you're supposed to and move on. But then he took a breath and he went off the rails a little bit.
Yeah.
But you could tell in his face because, even my son who was watching the game with him, and he's not a big football fan like me, he was even laughing at him because he's like, that dude looks like he's about to lose his noodle, man, right there. And like you said, you're the coach, man. You got to be able to shake that off and go in and be a leader. You can expound on it a little bit, but when you go in the locker room, you got to try to get them to move on because they're a lot younger than you, and they can get shaken a lot easier. And you're supposed to be the leader of that team and get them back on course and get them focused just to say, hey, look, we're still up 10-0. You know what I'm saying? And how can you go from going up 10-0, not scoring any points in the second half? He's supposed to have these great offenses, and it just hasn't materialized at Auburn.
It really hasn't. And 40, and I mentioned 40 yards in the second half. Most of that came on the last drive when Georgia was playing a prevent defense. I think they only had like 15 until that point. So, I mean, there's no excuse for that. I mean, we've seen time and time again these past couple of weeks where Auburn is looking pretty good in the first half, and in the second half they come out and they have nothing. They had 1 yard of offense in the fourth quarter against Texas A&M a couple of weeks ago. I mean, there's just no excuse for that, and you cannot win ball games like that. And you look at their schedule coming up, Outlaw. They've got another home game this week, but that's against Missouri. And Missouri's going to be coming in ticked off. They want retribution. They want to get back on the board. They want to get that W to stay in the playoff race. So they're going to be focused. Eli Drinkwitz is going to have his team ready. And if they lose that one, and then the next week they go to Arkansas and lose, I would not be shocked if Hugh Freeze is out of a job in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, all these jobs are open. Everybody's talking about the big James Franklin firing and whatnot. It's probably far from over. I mean, last year was pretty docile compared to what is normal years. We barely had any jobs open last year. Well, it looks like they may make up for it this year completely. So I don't know, man. It's not looking good for Hugh Freeze at Auburn for sure. So I mean, because I thought, I'll be honest with you, when they hired him, I thought it was a good hire. I thought, it would get Auburn back on track. Alabama's always had problems with Hugh Freeze, especially under Nick Saban. He beat Saban twice in a row, which not many coaches have done. I think only Tommy Tuberville may have beat Saban 2 years in a row. But I don't know, man. Auburn just can't get out of their own way, man.
I mean, as an Alabama fan, I do have to chuckle a little bit, but still, you got to feel sorry for some of these guys. I mean, they've had some good recruiting classes. They've had some good transfer portal additions. I mean, there is no reason for this offense to be as poor as it is. And if Hugh Freeze gets fired and this offense continues to struggle, that just superb wide receiver recruiting class they had a couple of years ago, like Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, some of those guys, it would not shock me if they go elsewhere. And then Auburn's really going to be in a mess because you're going to be bringing in a guy with a lot less talent than they had. And even with the talent they had, they weren't doing anything.
Yeah, Darren Mizzou fans in the house, he says Auburn lost their soul in the game when they took away that TD. Yeah, it was pretty detrimental. I mean, being up 17-0, people say, well, they scored 20 points in the second half. But if they're up 17-0, it probably changes the mindset of Georgia coming out in the second half. And they probably are pressing a little bit more, changes the complexion, how they call the game. And Auburn definitely probably could have won the game if they'd been up 17-0 at halftime. It might have changed the whole complexion of the game. So, but backing up to Alabama real quick, I forgot to tell you the point spread on that game right now. What I looked at on 247 Sports is 8.5 points for Alabama. I think that's a little high, but if it was 7, I might take it. I mean, because I don't know, or 6. It'd have to be 6 points. I think Alabama can cover a touchdown. So if it gets down to 6 points, I would bet Alabama. But if it's over 7 right now, I'm not feeling comfortable taking Alabama.
Well, I've got just my random amateur prediction. I've actually got Tennessee covering the spread. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. I think the Tennessee offense is too good for Alabama to contain completely. So I'm saying Alabama 34, Tennessee 30 is my prediction. Who knows if that'll end up. But yeah, I think I've seen anywhere from 8.5 to 9.5, depending on what you look at. And, these Vegas guys, I'll admit, probably know a lot more than I do. But you look at that Tennessee offense, they must be expecting a couple turnovers because I will say this. Tennessee does not operate as efficiently or as crisp on the road. They are a completely different team. Now, Heupel, as a coach, doesn't have a horrible road record compared to some others. But still, you can tell, like that Mississippi State game, they made a lot of mistakes. Of course, those cowbells drive anybody crazy. But they made a lot of mistakes in that game, and they had no business having to go into overtime with Mississippi State. I know the Bulldogs are improved this year, but still, Tennessee had a lot more talent than to be able to push to overtime by that team. And even though it was at home, that Arkansas game, again, they had a turnover, I believe, and Arkansas was just moving the ball at will at times. It was 17-17 at the half. Tennessee made a few stops in the second half, pushed forward to a 34-17 lead. But then Arkansas was able to make another big push at the end and get it to win a field goal. There are too many defensive laps by this volunteer defense for me to be confident in them pulling off the upset.
Yeah, I say 8 points is a lot, but really it's just 2 scores. Alabama could definitely beat Tennessee by 2 scores, especially if they turn the ball over like they're apt to do. Like you said, in Alabama's +9 in the turnovers. That rears its ugly head. It could be a real long day for Tennessee. And I don't think Tennessee's secondary is that good, right?
Oh, it's horrible. I mean, like I said, they're dead last in the SEC in passing defense.
If they can't shut down the running game for Alabama and make them one-dimensional, that way they know they're passing. It probably helps the secondary out a little bit if they know the pass is coming. If Jam Miller's back, that could be really detrimental to Tennessee's hopes to even keeping this game close. So I'm sort of going to backtrack a little bit and go back on what I said. I think Alabama can cover the spread because I do think we're going to get a couple of turnovers. And I think in the end, Alabama – now, you see these games all the time, though, where they got the great offenses. You think it's going to be high scored.
Yeah.
And then they come out and they don't score a lot of points. I've seen that happen a couple of times. One that pops to mind is the Auburn, Oregon game with Cam Newton back in the day. We thought that was going to be high scoring. It ended up 22-20 or some shit, 22-19.
Yeah.
So, but I do think Alabama's going to put some points up, and Tennessee will probably get their fair share too. But I think Alabama separates itself probably towards the early part of the fourth quarter, around the 10 or 11 minute mark. So I'm going to say Alabama 41 and Tennessee 24.
I would love it.
I'm going to go buy some cigars. And I've never partook in the celebration with cigars because I'm not a big smoking guy. But I might do it this time just because Tennessee's been running their mouth a lot here lately. They feel they're feeling the oats a little bit because they won, 2 out of the last 3 or something like that?
They've won both the games that have been at Tennessee. In 2022, that wild game that ended up like 52-49 or something like that. And then last year, there was a lot less scoring. It was 24-19 Tennessee. And, of course, like we saw many games last year, a late turnover by Jalen Milroe what sealed it. But I don't think we're going to have this problem this year with Ty Simpson at QB. Just the way he's been playing, I think Tennessee's got a good quarterback themselves. But I think being at home, the quarterback play, the weaknesses in Tennessee's defense, I think that's what's going to be the difference. And that's just going to be one of a number of really good games this week, Outlaw. And let me ask you this. I think we got time to look at a couple more games. You don't mind me moving on. I was
going to ask about the Oklahoma thing, too. Go ahead.
Do you know one of the games is Vanderbilt hosting LSU? And there's a little piece of trivia on this one I know you will love. Since 1978, Vanderbilt has faced 77 top 10 ranked teams. This week versus LSU is the first time ever they are the betting favorite. They are a 2.5-point favorite in this one.
Yeah, Vanderbilt being favored against LSU is just a complete anomaly in itself, man. I don't know if you watched the Super Friends back in the day, cartoon used to come on, but it's like Bizarro World. We had the bizarro Superman world going on here with Vanderbilt being favored over LSU anytime.
When I saw that at first, I was like, "Are you kidding me? Is this the world we're living in now?" But they're a slim home favorite. But they host the Tigers in Nashville, and LSU has got to get that offense right if they want to win this game.
Yeah, and they got a running quarterback that can create plays. I mean, he sort of botched himself a little bit against Alabama, but if LSU's defense gives up a few scores, their offense is so putrid that they may not be able to beat Vanderbilt. If Vanderbilt can get to 24 points, I think they can beat LSU.
I think so too. I mean, LSU has got to keep that. They got to do pretty much what Alabama did to them a couple of weeks ago after the first quarter, which is stop the run and make Pavia uncomfortable. If they can do that, I think that they are probably going to win a low-scoring game like 16-13, something like that. But if Vandy scores a couple of times early, that's going to cause Garrett Nussmeier to press. And when he presses, when he gets uncomfortable, he turns over the ball. LSU still is not running the ball well. So I think they could be in trouble in this game.
Now, since we got a Missouri guy in here, and they did play us tough, I got to give them their kudos, man. I was really worried, especially to start the game. They come down and just slapped us around. Let's go ahead and touch on the Missouri-Auburn game. I mean, this is a big game for both teams. Missouri's coming off a loss to Alabama, a close loss. Hopefully they won't have a lingering hangover effect like Penn State did. Penn State had a real close loss to Oregon and then turned around and lost to UCLA, who was horrific at the time. Do you think Missouri has a hangover here and still dwelling on the Alabama loss, or do you think they can move on and go down to Auburn, the Voodoo Palace, as we call it, and maybe eke out a win against Auburn?
Well, any other week, I might think that we might have a hangover with a team like Missouri losing, but I'm more worried about a hangover for Auburn because when you could not put that half past you and with a 10-0 lead, how is he going to get that team up after losing 20-10 like they did at home? I don't think you can have confidence in Auburn beating any really SEC opponent at this moment in time. The defense is still going to play well, I think, hopefully, for their sake, because if they don't, Missouri is going to try to run the ball like they did against Alabama. Now, they weren't successful, but they're just going to kind of try to keep chipping away, and hoping that Bo Pribula can make some passes downfield in the play action game. If they can do that, then it's going to get ugly. And when I talk ugly, I mean if Missouri runs their offense and Auburn's not ready for that, I'm talking like 20 points ugly at least. But they have got to – Hugh Freeze has got to settle that team down, show them the talent they have on defense, remind them who they are, especially on defense, and do something, anything to get that offense going. Because if they don't score more than 20, I don't think they can win this game. And they haven't scored 20 points since, I would have to look at it. But I don't think that they've scored a lot this season, more than 20 in several games.
When you have a couple of controversial losses like that with Oklahoma and Georgia, they're that close and you feel like you got robbed, a team will do one or two things. They'll either be really pissed off and come out and try to prove themselves the rest of the year, or they'll roll over and start losing games by massive amounts, at least until a coaching change comes. Like with Arkansas, they had a couple of losses early on that were really close to Ole Miss and Memphis, and then they just rolled over against Notre Dame. Bob Petrino comes in, new head coach, new voice. Well, not really new. The old is new with Bob Petrino. But they played Tennessee really close. I was really impressed with how Bob Petrino rallied Arkansas. And that might be what happens with Auburn. This could be the game right here. The Missouri game could be the game that decides whether Hugh Freeze is at Auburn for the rest of the season, because the etiquette's gone, and there's no etiquette in waiting until the end of the season anymore.
Oh, yeah.
They're
Definitely
firing coaches left and right in the middle of the year. So if Auburn lays a complete egg against Missouri, because usually Auburn will play you close in Auburn, even when they suck. And if Missouri goes down there and just rolls them 20 or 30 points, I think they'll fire Hugh Freeze.
I think so too. So a good start is essential in this game. And if Auburn gets another questionable call against them, I mean, how does Hugh Freeze keep him from falling apart? Because he's already shown that he does not have the capability to do that. He cannot rally this team right now. And I don't know if it's just because he's down, is something going on with him, or if it's just they don't believe in him anymore. That's something that may be a possibility as well. But I just have no confidence in Auburn being able to pull off a win.
It's just like LSU, man. If they would ever get their crap together and get a coach that stays, and Les Miles did, but Les Miles, we see what happened with Les Miles, but they just can't get the coaching thing right at Auburn. They got inner turmoil all the time. There's always a civil war down there amongst the boosters. Everybody knows about it. Everybody's heard about it. With the Colonial Bank and all them other crazies down there in Lee County.
Yellow fella.
Yeah. But Blind Squirrel Sports says, allegedly the refs brought some kryptonite to Jordan Hare and Georgia capitalized on it. Well, that might be the only solution to the voodoo down there. What I worry about is Alabama going down there and them trying to make a makeup call or makeup game to Auburn if Auburn's won a few games by then and still has a pulse. But like I said, if they get beat down by Missouri, they may just roll over for the rest of the season.
I'll say this, kryptonite only works on Superman, and Auburn ain't Superman.
No, but they got some voodoo magic down there in Auburn. They keep every game close, it seems like.
Take some holy water down there or something.
I'm going to bring up some Oklahoma stuff real quick.
Yes.
They lost to Texas last week. I sort of saw that coming in a way. I ain't going to lie. We got a lot of Oklahoma people on this channel. They support this channel hardcore, but a lot of people are really irate. I've done a video today about it. Even Paul Feinbaum and Matt Berry were talking about how it was a poor, horrific decision to hurry John Mateer back. Usually an injury like that takes about 4 to 5 weeks to heal. He probably shouldn't even played the South Carolina game, and they may have brought him back too early. And to me, that speaks that, they said, well, he begged to play. But, hey, he's a young man, and he's not the leader of the team. Your coach is. Brent Venables shouldn't have gave in to him, and Brent Venables is the leader of that organization. So I think maybe Brent Venables got a little greedy and decided, hey, I need him in this game, and I'm going to play him regardless. But I think it might have hurt him long term.
I mean, it's hard to argue. And, you say greedy. I'm going to say desperate because of, the Sooners are wanting a winner, and they're wanting a winner bad. This was supposed to be the year with Mateer and the new offensive coordinator and the talent that they had. And obviously they have zero faith in Michael Hawkins to win a big game, which might be fair because of the way we've seen him perform when in there, like the Texas game last year. But still, after Texas, now they go to South Carolina, which is not near as daunting as it was a few weeks ago, or it looked near as daunting. But then Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at Alabama, even with John, and then Missouri, and then LSU. Even with John Mateer quarterback, there's some games on there that are going to be really tough to win. So they probably thought with the way the Texas offense was struggling that Mateer being in there, they would have a better chance to win. Maybe the only chance to win, and they needed to win as many games as they could because of that tough stretch coming up. But still, yeah, they rushed him. I mean, 17 days was it with that hand injury? I mean, you just can't do that.
Well, the hand was bleeding throughout the game.
Yeah. And if he plays this week, how do you justify that?
I just don't understand it. Paul Feinbaum made a great point, and I actually touched on this with Killer Breeze a few shows back, in that if they had started Michael Hawkins, it would have allowed them to have like not, I don't know if you could call it an excuse, but at least a valid reason for losing that game, because the committee later on may look at that and say, hey, John Mateer wasn't in that game.
Right.
So we're not going to really hold that loss against them. Well, now you put John Mateer in the game and you lose by double digits. So now you don't have that excuse. You don't have that to fall back on. It would have been better big picture. It would have been better had he just played Michael Hawkins, and the Sooner fans would have been much more forgiving, I think. Because now you got a bunch of them that's in my feed and in my inbox talking about they want him fired, man, after just one loss. As you can see here, here's an example. The stuff that I'm getting in my inbox on Facebook. This is from Calvin Glover. He sent me a meme that says Oklahoma's last touchdown against Texas was in 2023.
Yeah.
And then Johnny Johns, who's a big Oklahoma supporter and not usually one to call for someone's head, says RIP Center Magic and RIP Center Running Game. That's just a taste. I've gotten like probably 30 or 40 responses like that from people that I didn't think they would turn on him after just one game, but it feels like it was more than just one loss because of how it happened.
How it happened, who it was to. I mean, this is 3 out of 4 now that Oklahoma's lost in the Red River rivalry. And Oklahoma fans are not going to stand for that. And there are certain fan bases, their patience will run thin very quickly. Our own fan base, Alabama's guilty of that. I mean, after the loss to Florida State, there were people wanting to, hang DeBoer and run him out of town.
Yeah. Ask Bill Curry about losing Auburn and LSU every year.
Oh, gosh, no kidding. But, I mean, there are certain fan bases that have very thin patience because they're used to success. And Oklahoma, they've been up and down quite a bit the past couple of years. So they are hungry for that success again. And again, at the start of the year, they thought this was it. A lot of people were hyping them up, saying they could possibly be a playoff team. And we're on the cusp of them losing all that. And I think that they can probably survive with whoever at quarterback against South Carolina, because South Carolina is just awful right now. So even going to Columbia, I think that Oklahoma can win a low-scoring affair like 13-10, 17-13, something like that, because the South Carolina team, their offense is horrible. They have one of the worst rushing attacks in the league, so I think that center defense can carry them, probably force a turnover. The one thing that Oklahoma cannot afford to happen in this game is South Carolina is also good at forcing turnovers and special teams play. They have 6 non-offensive touchdowns on the year. If they are able to do that against Oklahoma, if they were able to get a punt return for a touchdown or a pick 6 or something like that, Sooners are going to be in trouble, because I don't know if the offense has the capability right now to play catch-up to make up for scores like that. But still, South Carolina, they're kind of like Auburn with me. I don't have any confidence in them to really win a league game because their offense is so bad. Their South Carolina, the defense is okay. They're like in the middle of the pack in scoring. They're like 9th or 10th, something like that. So not great, but they can be scored on. But if John Mateer, I don't know how you justify playing him again. 3 interceptions against Texas, so that puts them at a lot of risk for turnovers versus a team that's been able to capitalize on turnovers. And I think you got to let Hawkins at least start and see what he can do. If things get really bad and the doctors say, okay, Mateer can play, maybe you try it, but I don't think you start him.
Well, if I'm John Mateer, I'm looking out for my NFL career at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you risk so much continuing to put yourself out there because teams are going to go after that hand.
Right. Even Booger McFarland, man, he said something really, to me, pretty trashy. Live on the show before the game, he was like, one of them defensive linemen need to look for that hand so they can step on it. I'm like, damn, man, you said that out loud? I couldn't believe you said that, man.
Well, it's one of those things where you don't want people to say it, but it's true, because that's what they do. I mean, the bottom of the pile, if you see a guy that's having some problems, you'll drive your knee into his leg, or you may try to twist that foot a little bit, or you'll step on that hand. They do some dirty stuff in those trench piles.
Like Ohio State, when they grabbed a whole handful of the Clemson guy's balls when he's laying on the field, that kind of deal.
Exactly. I mean, those guys try to hurt each other out there. I mean, let's not let's not lie and let's not be naive about this. So if Mateer goes out there and Dylan Stewart gets a hard hit on him and knocks him down, when Stewart gets up, he's going to put those cleats in that hand. It's going to happen.
That's right. And here's another comment. This is just a short and sweet one. I just want to, reiterate to the Oklahoma fans, this ain't me as an Alabama fan trying to pile on, because I'm usually very supportive of Oklahoma. This channel's got a lot of Oklahoma fans and Alabama fans on it. But this is just another example of someone in my comment section on the video saying, he, speaking of Brent Venables, would have been fired after the game if it were me. And I responded with, I'm not sure I would have did that, but BV definitely needs to go at least 9-3 to stay another year, in my opinion.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, right now, especially if Mateer is not 100%, if he can't heal up, if they don't allow him to heal up with some of the games they have on their schedule. I mean, they have one loss right now, and I still think I said they beat South Carolina. I think it's an early game on the SEC network. South Carolina's not playing well at all. But then you have Ole Miss that is at home, but still Ole Miss as a very good football team. And then you got back-to-back games against Tennessee and Alabama. And that's going to be tough to survive one or even both of those. It would not shock me if they lose both. And then they've got a couple of teams. Missouri could be a challenge. LSU can be a challenge. So, you could – I mean, I'm not saying it will happen, but you cannot dismiss the possibility that out of their next 6 games, they lose 4 of them. I mean, you cannot dismiss that.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to ask you as an outsider looking in as well. If Brent Venables goes 8-4 or 7-5, do they fire him?
That's tough because I don't know what his buyout is, but you got to look at the buyout. You got to look at possibly if they have another year with Mateer if he chooses to come back, because I think he does have another year of eligibility, and then what's left in the cupboard as far as talent goes. If you think with the talent that they have that Venables can turn it around next season and possibly get him the playoff, then you got to keep him because you don't want to blow that up. Because if you fire him, you run the risk of losing a lot of that talent with the transfer portal the way it is now. But if they go 8-4, 7-5, and some guys start leaving anyway, and you look at him and you say, no, he's not it. We need to cut bait now. Then you pull the trigger. But you got to be sure. This is not one of those things where, okay, maybe he does this, maybe he does that. If you honestly think that Venables is not the guy at this point with the talent he has, then you got to get rid of him. And
the bad thing about it is this is a really bad year to fire your coach. You got big name schools out there. Huge. I mean, I don't remember this many big name schools with this many openings in one year in the middle of the year. You're going to be competing against the Floridas, the UCLAs, and Penn States, the world, man. Those are blue blood names, man, that you're going to be competing against. And a lot of the Oklahoma fans keep bringing up Kurt Cignetti, as a lot of people do. But nowadays, with teams like Indiana and Ole Miss, for example, because people talk about Lane Kiffin going to Florida,
right.
Ole Miss and Indiana with the NIL and boosters able to put more money into the programs now. These teams are paying their coaches a lot better. I mean, Lane Kiffin's making $9 million a year. The guy at Missouri, Eli Drinkowitz, he's making $9 million a year.
Yeah.
So these mid-card programs are what you consider in the past that you can go filch their coach. I don't think you can do that anymore. I mean, because why would they leave those programs anyway and go to a program like Florida or Oklahoma or somewhere like that where the pressure is going to be a lot worse? Whereas if Lane Kiffin, for example, stays at Ole Miss, he's a god there. He can go 8-4 every year and not get fired.
The one guy, and I don't know if he would accept the job. I'm not saying that he would, but with the success that he's had and the connection that he has to Oklahoma, and I think there might have been some strife there when he was there as the offensive coordinator, but I'm not sure if I remember that correctly. But still, even if that's the case, there's some new leadership there with their AD retired recently. The one person I make the first call to and make him say no at least is Josh Heupel. He's done well at Tennessee. It's his alma mater. And that's the first person I call because he's won. He's done well at Tennessee. Come home, Josh. We'll pay you what you want. We'll give you what you want. Make Oklahoma great again. Make your home college, your home university, up there where it should be. Pitch that to him. If he says no, fine. But you got to make that call. That is the first call I make if I'm Oklahoma's AD is Josh Heupel.
Yeah, because that's a special circumstance where you could actually get a quality coach that's proven himself somewhat. And plus, we know how some of the Tennessee behind-the-scenes stuff works where the field formal crowd always meddling and stuff. There may be some strife there that we don't know about. And Josh Heupel may be like, hey, this would be a great way for me to get out. Plus, I would, like you said, he'd be considered a a hometown hero, so to speak, coming home. He may not be from Norman, but he was there for 3 or 4 years, so it's like home to him, and it would be probably a good fit for him, and they would definitely welcome him back. Turd Ferguson says Brent Venables needs another season, I'd say. We are loyal. I'd hope for another one, no doubt. It might be in your best interest, even if you don't want to keep him for another year. It might be in your best interest as far as being able to get a coach and not have to compete against all these big-name schools for a coach to keep Brent Venables another year. What do you think about that?
The coaching carousel is going to be very interesting. I know we wanted to talk about that in the last few minutes we have, but, I mean, so many schools. Penn State is going to be looking for a coach. Arkansas, maybe they stick with Bobby Petrino, maybe they don't. And then you have these other programs, some pretty big-name programs that may or may not. I was listening to WJOX out of Birmingham this morning. They had Andy Staples on, and he was talking about how he was going to, like, even earlier in the season before the loss to USC, where he was going across the message boards, and there's a lot of Michigan fans that are pretty weary with Sharon Moore already.
Exactly.
So, that job may be available. So you've got a couple of blue blood programs, one at least. Well, Penn State's kind of on that edge there, I think. But we'll say big time. We've got a couple of big time historic programs that could be looking at a new coach. Penn State definitely. Michigan's a possibility. Florida maybe. Florida State possibly. I mean, you've got some programs that have national championship pedigree that have had a lot of success in multiple decades that are going to be looking possibly for new head coaches. So that coaching carousel is going to spin. It's going to spin fast. And as soon as the season's over, they are going to be making a push for these guys quickly. And all the hot names are going to be out there. Lane Kiffin, again, who knows if he will he will leave. But, Lane Kiffin, Kirk Signetti, there's some others. The Georgia Tech guy, Brent Key, they're undefeated right now. They have going after him. There's a lot of names out there that could fill these roles, and I think fill them well. So it's going to be a bloodbath trying to get all these guys figured out.
Well, James Franklin, I saw something. I'm not a big James Franklin fan. He said some stuff in press conferences, and that doesn't make me like him as a human being. But his record was pretty great the last 4 or 5 years. I saw a stat on, I think it was the Clay Travis show, where he said that he had like the 4th or 5th most wins in the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah,
only people ahead were like Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, Kalen DeBoer.
Yeah,
were the only coaches ahead of him.
And this is where it always gets a little tricky, because you see the wins that he piles up, and that will give you a very long leash. But when you're continually losing to the teams ahead of you, and that happens every single year, then fans get weary of that, and the boosters get weary of that, and you see this. He's gotten us to this point. He's gotten us to the playoff. We won a national championship. We don't think he can do that, so they make the change. A lot of times, it's be careful what you wish for. You might get it, and then things go downhill.
I think losing to Oregon wasn't that big. I mean, it was a big deal, but it wasn't going to get him fired. But I think, like you said, he's always been able to beat the teams he's supposed to be and pile up some wins. He can't beat Ohio State and Michigan. But now he's starting to lose those games like UCLA and Northwestern. So they're now hey, we got a reason now. You're not even beating the teams you're supposed to beat. So you're definitely probably not going to beat Ohio State and Indiana at this point. But it would not surprise me now, since he's got a lot of wins, that someone doesn't scoop him up quick if he don't want to sit at home and draw that $50 million that he's getting as a buyout. Like dude said here in the comment section, Darren the Mizzou fan said Franklin might even go to Florida.
It's a possibility. You cannot rule out anything right now. I mean, we're going into week 8 of the college football season, and we have had so many openings already pop up. And as soon as the season ends, there's going to be a mad dash, and I'm sure there's already calls being made to agents. I think some of these decisions have already been made, and they're just waiting to the end of the season. But as soon as that season ends, Jimmy Sexton, all those guys, they're going to be fielding and making a lot of calls to their clients, receiving calls from universities. And there's going to be a lot of wheeling and dealing and a lot of money exchanging hands. And probably even while the playoffs going on, because, there's only going to be a few teams left. As soon as the regular season ends, some of these teams that aren't in the bowl game or in the playoff that the fan base thinks they should be in, or, they're not having the success, that trigger is going to be pulled pretty much as soon as the season's over. And it's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, that coaching carousel, like I said, is going to spin fast this year.
Well, they don't hire the interim coach at UCLA. He's won 2 games in a row now. They beat Michigan State. Michigan State's not that great. I'd be interested to see what UCLA does for the rest of the season. I wouldn't put it past UCLA to hire James Franklin, and he'd be within the conference, because that area of the country seems like somewhere he might fit in really well.
And, the funny thing about it is, we've seen that about UCLA. Tim Skipper is their interim head coach right now. Their interim offensive coordinator is Jerry Neuheisel. Neuheisel's the one that's getting all the press right now because of what their offense has done since he took over. Now, I don't know if they would hire him. They may try to go after him as their head coach, UCLA, Jerry Neuheisel. But, this is a guy that was like their tight ends coach. He's done well in a few games, but it's a very small sample size. So he may need a little time before he gets a head coaching job at somewhere like UCLA, if he wants to leave, or if the new guy, whoever they do bring in, James Franklin, for instance, doesn't keep him around. But I'm not sure he's ready for a big-time head coaching position yet. But he's going to get looked at, because that's what athletic directors do. They kind of look at the hot hand, the flavor of the month, and they say, yeah, I want that guy. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, if they don't rehire Bob Petrino at Arkansas, and I'm thinking, if he continues showing the progress he showed, they probably should rehire him, because he had him in the top 5 when he left, before all that crap with the girl on the motorcycle. That might be another spot for James Franklin. Fayetteville may be willing to take a chance on him, but Arkansas will get him back in the SEC. I don't know. It
could be, and I tell you what, Outlaw, I'm going to have to say goodbye for now, because getting close to 2:30 and stuff tells you how bad an hour. But man, we've talked about a lot of stuff, a lot of great topics. I'll say I think Alabama does beat Tennessee 34-30. I think that I think LSU is going to squeak it out against Vanderbilt. I'm still not sold on Vandy's ability to beat a quality team, and LSU, despite their offensive deficiencies, has the talent to beat them. So I think it's going to be a close game. I do think that Oklahoma beats South Carolina, and I do think that Missouri beats Auburn. And I want to leave you with this thought, Outlaw. This is from Isaiah 41:10. I'm going to go a little biblical on you. And just remember this, you go out through your day, especially the culture of the world right now. It reads, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my mighty right hand, says the Lord."
That's a good one, brother. I appreciate it. But yeah, tell them where you can check you out again, and we'll let you get up out of here.
Appreciate it, Outlaw. Southern Sports Focus is the YouTube channel name. Also, that is the name of the Facebook group that I run, Southern Sports Focus. So check us out on Facebook. Check us out on YouTube. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Like I said, I'm just a fan that loves chatting up sports, and we'll do that anytime I have the time to.
All right, brother. Take care.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Outlaw.
All right, later. And that was Jeremy Smith from Southern Sports Focus, but we're not done here yet. Y'all don't go anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and go over some more games that I wanted to get to, but we run out of time with Jeremy. But he gave us some good stuff. He even gave us a great biblical verse at the end. We're going to start doing that every show because I used to do it, and a lot of the, I guess, non-believers out there, I do get a little potty mouthed on here sometimes. So some people may not think I'm very religious, but I'm very much a believer in our Lord Jesus Christ and God and the whole King James Version of the Bible. But that was a great biblical verse from him, and I appreciate that. We're not going to be censored around here anymore. YouTube's been censoring me. They've took my monetization away because I reshared Charlie Kirk videos on here in my short section. So the only way we can get donations now is in the money $sign JPC316 on Cash App. If y'all want to give me a donation on there, you can help me keep the lights on and curb the censorship, as well as JPC316 on Venmo. Now, getting back to these games real quick, I want to get y'all's take on all these games. Y'all throw me some predictions in here. All those games that we predicted on, give me your thoughts on that as well. As you can see here, Friday night, that Friday night game is always a booger where someone can just upset you, a middle-of-the-road team that you don't think can beat you but has the ability to beat you, springs up and upsets you. So do not be surprised Friday night if Louisville doesn't go to Miami and maybe give them a scare. I like looking at these ticket prices over here too. $20 for a Louisville-Miami game. That's why Miami fans get no respect, because they don't show up to watch their team even when they're winning half the time. Also on Friday night, you got Nebraska versus Minnesota. Nebraska's 5-1 right now. This would be a huge win for Nebraska. I think they've lost 4 or 5 in a row to Minnesota. Minnesota's not that good this year. So if Nebraska wins this game, it could be another page for Matt Rule to turn and get Nebraska back to relevancy. What do y'all think? Bill Belichick and his girlfriend go out there to play Cal. Probably another loss for North Carolina. Let's move on down here and find some of the bigger games. Georgia Tech is playing at Duke. Georgia Tech is undefeated. Do not be surprised once again if there's an upset right here brewing. It's in Duke. Duke's played rather well for Duke. They're 4-2, $15. You can go see that game, $15.65. But don't be surprised if Duke upsets Georgia Tech in that game. LSU versus Vanderbilt, we just talked about that one. The prices for this are $173 in Nashville now. And Vanderbilt's favored. We are in bizarro world from the Super Friends. I think Vanderbilt can win this game. Jeremy thinks that LSU's defense will be just enough to get them past Diego Pavia, the Johnny Manziel wannabe, and beat Vanderbilt. I think they may actually pull this. They really need this game in order to keep their aspirations in front of them. That they said if they lost Alabama, they would play Alabama again in the SEC title game. In order for them to do that, they're going to have to win a game against a big name school again this year. And LSU could be that team. Now I know they beat South Carolina earlier, but what do y'all think? I think Vanderbilt needs this win. And I think they will beat LSU because LSU's offense is eventually going to cost them a game or two. See what y'all got going on in the comment section. Darren Mizzou fan says, is this Pavia's last year? I hope so. I mean, I think the guy's probably going to end up drawing Social Security from the state of Tennessee if he stays much longer, right, Darren? By the way, if you hadn't liked or subscribed to this channel, please do so. It helps push the algorithm. Hit the subscribe button also. Just smash the like button. I got tongue-tied there. All right. Thunder OU Center's in the house. He's one of our most attending subscribers. Oklahoma definitely needs the win against South Carolina. Yeah, they both really need the win. South Carolina's another job that we didn't talk about earlier, but Beamer could be on the hot seat if he keeps losing games, and he may want to try to get an exit out. And what better way to exit out than to go to his alma mater, Virginia Tech, if Frank Beamer. If Shane Beamer keeps losing at South Carolina, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a mutual partner ways and Beamer ends up at Virginia Tech. I am Sooners in the house. He says, keep Brent. You can't beat Texas every time. As much as I dislike that fact, y'all hit the like button. Yes, please hit the like button. I said that earlier. Yeah, but what are y'all now against, 1-3? I would say one more loss to Texas next year might do him in. Also, the rest of this year is really going to be a telltale as well. But as me and Jeremy mentioned earlier in this live stream, right now it's not a good time to try to hire a coach. You got way too many big name programs out there right now looking for a head coach, and others that are probably going to be like Florida. Just way too many big name schools out there looking for head coaches right now. So I think that if Brant Venable goes 8-4 or 9-3, 8-4 is sort of that gray area for me. Y'all tell me, is 8-4 good enough for Brant to get one more season? Maybe it should be. If there wasn't so many openings this year, I would say 8-4 might be a record that you could dismiss him for. But with the way it is this year and all these firings going on, I would say Brent Venables, if he finishes 8-4, I think he should stay. But if he goes 7-5 or 6-6, it's going to be a hard pill to swallow for the Sooners. But back to the games. All right, Washington goes to Michigan. This is a big game for Michigan and Sharon Moore. As we mentioned earlier, he's sort of getting on the hot seat. He probably would have already been on the hot seat had he not ended the year beating Ohio State and Alabama back-to-back, which had never been done. Of course, nobody ever played Ohio State and Alabama back-to-back in a season. But those two games at the end of the year basically saved Sharon Moore from being directly on the hot seat this year. Now he's starting to get that seat a little warm. He lost to Oklahoma. He lost to USC by a lot. And if Washington goes into the big house and wins this game, and I think they can, Sharon Moore's seat will become a lot more hotter as the season progresses. Oklahoma at South Carolina, we already talked about that game. He took Oklahoma in that game. I'm also going to take Oklahoma. I'm hoping that maybe they let John Mateer rest for a game. Maybe start Hawkins in this game. If it doesn't work out, just bring Mateer in the second half. But I really think Mateer probably should have set out the Texas and the South Carolina game just to be safe. Big picture. You could have took a loss to Texas if Michael Hawkins had been in the game, as I mentioned earlier. It would have been a more forgivable loss in the eyes of the Oklahoma fans and the eyes of the playoff committee. But now that mulligan is no longer there. My boy Kuz's West Virginia Mountaineers travel to UCF. That's a hairy game, $18 a ticket. Now, Oklahoma ticket's a little affordable, $72. Washington, Michigan, $160. I don't think West Virginia can win that game. As much as I hate it for Kuz, I look for this. I look for the Knights to win that game. Going on down the list here, let's find some really good games. Texas A&M at Arkansas. Arkansas looked a lot better under Bob Petrino, a new voice in the locker room kind of deal, sort of like with UCLA. They didn't pull off the win, but they did have to go on the road in Neyland Stadium, and they almost won that game. Texas A&M is coming into Razorback Stadium. This will be Bob Petrino's first game back as the head coach in Donald Reynolds Stadium, Razorback Stadium. And I think that Arkansas can pull the upset here. Now, don't be surprised if Arkansas pulls the upset here. It would not surprise me at all because Texas A&M, as they always do, is due a game where they just crap the bed. SMU plays at Clemson. This is a big, important game for Clemson. They've won a couple of games in a row. If they can beat SMU, who is considered a preseason ACC favorite, they're not doing so well either. It would be a huge win for Clemson to try to right the ship a little bit. That's another job that may come open. It hasn't yet, but it may come open because a lot of Clemson fans are blowing up my channel as well, talking about fire Dabo Swinney. I think it's a little premature. Dabo's won 8 conference titles, won 2 national championships. No Clemson coach in history has ever done that in their 120-plus year history. I think Dabo should get another year and try to right the ship. But beating SMU would be a huge step forward in quieting some of the critics. Plus, if Clemson wins out and they only got 3 losses, guess what? Guess what? They could get back into the playoffs because they did last year. People forget that. Clemson got in the playoffs last year with 3 losses because they beat this team right here, SMU, in the title game. Ohio State goes to Wisconsin. Wisconsin's not looking very good. Not sure why CBS is televising this game. But lots of times you'll see teams that's not looking very good just up and beat you like UCLA did Penn State. Illinois beat USC after they got blowed out by Indiana. You just don't know. These are college kids. Not kids, my bad. Y'all got me brainwashed in saying that. These are young college men, and we're now getting a warning from my phone here. Let's see what's going on here. Maybe that's telling me to get off the air, you know. Hate that shit. Anyway, sorry about that. That was a warning there, boy. That was YouTube telling me I need to shut up talking about religion and talking about Charlie Kirk again. They can KMCA. All right. If you don't know what that means, it means kiss my country ass. Ole Miss at Georgia, huge game. Ole Miss going on the road, didn't look too good against Washington State last week, but that can be expected. It was sort of a trap game. Ole Miss probably looking ahead to Georgia. I don't know if Georgia's going to lose 2 games at Sanford Stadium in the same year. They've won 33 in a row before Alabama snapped their home winning streak. Alabama also snapped Missouri's home winning streak. So if you got a home winning streak, don't invite Alabama to come play at your place because they will break that shit. But the Georgia Hedge Pissers in this game, they really need this game against Ole Miss. Both teams need this game. I don't know why I said Georgia needs it, because Ole Miss needs it just as bad to prove themselves as a contender and not a pretender. Ole Miss every year is on the cusp with Lane Kiffin, but they can't get over the hump as far as contending for national titles. They're just usually a really good team that goes to a really good bowl every year. Big game for Ole Miss. If they can win this game on the road against Georgia, it would really solidify Lane Kiffin as a legitimate possible championship type coach. But I don't know if he can get it in this one. But Georgia didn't look great against Auburn, and they didn't look that awesome against Kentucky. So it would not surprise me if Ole Miss upset Georgia in this game. I know they're ranked ahead of Georgia, but I think Georgia's favored. These tickets are going for $210, by the way, compared to Miami only having $20 a ticket. SEC versus ACC. There you go. Oh, man, it's a hard game. I guess I'm going to have to take Georgia because I just don't see them losing two games in Sanford Stadium in the same season. It'll be close. But like I said, don't put it past Ole Miss to beat Georgia. I'd like to see Ole Miss win this game. If Georgia loses this game, it may knock them out of the playoffs. Although 2 losses can still get you in. Michigan State at Indiana. Michigan State sucks. Indiana doesn't. It's going to be a blowout. Memphis versus UAB. I bring this game up because Memphis is one of those teams that could get the G5 spot if they continue to win. They'll have to win out and go undefeated. Whereas USF has played a very hard schedule. South Florida's got 1 loss. They could still probably get the bid over Memphis if Memphis struggles with any of these teams. Mississippi State at Florida, a game that nobody probably really cares about this point. Although for Billy Napier, it's a must-win once again. Every game for Billy Napier here going forward is a must-win. I think Florida will pull it out for him. Oregon at Rutgers. Don't see that being a close game. Rutgers is pretty pesky, though, and it is a long trip for Oregon, so Oregon better be wary of that hangover effect that we talked about with Penn State when they lost to Oregon and went to UCLA. Washington State playing all sorts of weird non-conference games at Virginia. Played Ole Miss tough. Don't be surprised if Washington State upsets Virginia. Texas goes to Kentucky. Kentucky sucks, but it is on the road, and you never know. Texas may be having some lingering effects after pulling off probably their biggest win of the season against Oklahoma, and let Kentucky slip up on them, which would be pretty funny, to be honest with you. Penn State at Iowa. I'm not sure who their interim coach is, but Iowa actually scored some points last week, so Penn State may be in trouble yet again. Going on down here, USC at Notre Dame. USC beat Michigan last week. Big win, probably one of the biggest wins for Lincoln Riley to try to secure his job. That may be another job opening. If Lincoln Riley doesn't continue to win, they go to Notre Dame. Notre Dame, even though they lost 2 games early, they lost to 2 quality teams that are in the top 4. So, once again, Notre Dame gets the luck of the Irish, and their schedule is helping them out, especially Texas A&M and Miami. If Notre Dame continues to win, Notre Dame will make the playoffs with 2 losses, in my opinion. And I think Notre Dame will put Lincoln Riley back in his place and start him back up losing again. And I think Notre Dame will win this game by maybe even a couple of scores. We've already done Tennessee and Alabama. Missouri at Auburn, we already done that one. Utah's playing BYU. Check these tickets out. $327 for the Holy War. These guys hate each other for real. This is a game that BYU and Utah both need to keep their flickering playoff hopes alive. BYU is undefeated, and it's at BYU. So if BYU can pull this win against Utah, that would be probably very much appreciated by the Big 12 people. Because right now it only looks like the Big 12 may just get 1 team in, that being Texas Tech. if BYU can continue to win and only have one, if BYU can continue to win and have no losses and they play Texas Tech later on, the loser of that game, if they're both ranked high, would serve really well for the Big 12, getting them two teams into the playoffs with BYU and Texas Tech getting in. So BYU needs to continue to win for the whole Big 12. And that's about it. Florida State does go to Stanford, but at this point, nobody cares about the fake Indians down the reservation. We all now know, like Dennis Green once famously said, you are who we thought you were, Florida State. You're a one-hit wonder. You got lucky and beat Alabama, and now what did you do with that win? You completely sold the sheets, wet your diaper. Now you're losing your noodle, and the fake Indians are probably about to fire their coach. They probably should have fired him last year, but that big win over Alabama, give him some collateral, but I think that collateral has now been used up. So what do y'all think about all that? Blind Squirrel Sports says, lost in translation of Clapgate is the fact that Auburn's defense was simulating Georgia's snap count by clapping. Yeah, I heard a little something about that, but I didn't know the specifics. I'm glad you brought that up, Blind Squirrel Sports. By the way, brother, do you have a podcast that you do as well? Because if you do, you're more than welcome to be on the show. Just hit me up on X at OCF Productions. That's at OCF Productions. It's also on the scroll down here. Hit me up in DMs on there, and we can maybe exchange phone numbers, and you can be on the show. I'm not sure who your team is, but this is the home of the Common Joe and the Common Sal, and they know even more so than all the media talking heads, and that's because we allow common folk on here that actually know more about sports than those talking heads. David Orwig is in the house. Says a lot of Sooner fans agree that starting Hawkins instead of Mateer, he would probably have won that game with nothing but a broken and fresh as heck. He could at least played as well as Arch or Boomer. Well, I don't agree that they would have won the game. I think that Oklahoma was probably going to lose that game regardless. Whether they started Mateer, whether they started Hawkins, whether they brought Baker Mayfield back in a wig, they were probably still going to lose that ball game in Texas. Texas really needed that game. I said that in my video before the game, that Texas needed that game. Their backs were against the wall. Texas loses that game. Texas hopes, flickering hopes of a playoff spot are completely gone. And Hawkins hasn't really showed me anything. I know he played against Kent State and beat them 44-0, but he didn't look very impressive to me in that Kent State game. If Hawkins started, would it have been a closer game? Maybe. I still don't think Oklahoma would have won, but it would have provided Oklahoma that excuse and that mulligan to say, hey, look, if we had played with a healthy Mateer, we would have beat Texas. And they can still say that because Mateer's hand was bleeding profusely throughout the game. But, yeah, I think Hawkins would have lost the game too. I just think that Mateer should have set, and it would have provided y'all with that mulligan that you could have used later on. But now you got a gauntlet to go through, so it may not matter regardless. Even if you beat Texas, there's no guarantee that you wouldn't have lost 3 or 4 more games anyway because the schedule that you got is so hard. Blind Squirrel Sports said Kirby did signal timeout and should have been charged for it during that time. He could have argued for a defensive delay of game penalty on Auburn, but it's a moot point. Well, it is now. But here's my thing. If you got replay and you use it to correct bad calls, Blind Squirrel Sports, why didn't you correct the call? It looked like a bad call. It looked like it should have been corrected. Maybe it wasn't, as they say, what's the terminology they use? It's not defining. It's not absolutely 100% that he actually didn't break the plane, so they couldn't overturn it for that reason. But as I said before, I've been demonetized to December 14th for resharing Charlie Kirk videos on my short section. So now we're using Cash App to get our donations to try to curb the censorship. So if y'all want to hit me up on Cash App and help me out, throw a few dollars in the coffers. It's money $ JPC316. It's coming across the scroll right now on Cash App. Also on Venmo under JPC316 as well. KMCA to all the other teams. Class is now officially dismissed.